Today, whatever that I'm going to explain requires your in-depth imagination. You should picturize every bit of it. Now, he was born in Minnesota and has a BA in English as well as economics. What happened when he was surfing? He was knocked by the waves and he was swept over by the waves. That is when his aquaphobia actually had begun. When he was 3 to 4 years old, went surfboarding with his father, those memories were brought back. Hello and welcome to your prep school English classes. I am your English teacher, Kshama. Today, we are actually diving deep. We are diving into deep water. I always tell you we are about to dive into the lesson. Today, the name of the lesson, which is your third lesson from the chapter Flamingo, is nothing but Deep Water by William O. Douglas. So, we are actually diving deep today. Let's waste no time and dive deep in. In this session, we are going to learn about the author, the background, the summary, as well as we are going to recap the entire lesson. What is the lesson Deep Water about? Are we getting the description of how a deep water will be? What is happening inside the deep water? Let's understand. The author of this lesson, before understanding about the author of the lesson, I have a couple of questions for you. What are the questions? What do you fear the most? I fear snakes the most. What do you fear the most? Okay. Have you ever tried confronting it? Have you ever tried confronting your worst fear? I have never tried confronting snakes. That's not a good idea, I feel like. Why is that we avoid whatever that we are very much fearful of, that whatever that we are scared of the most, we avoid it most often. Why do we do that? Because it scares us. You may say, I know. How do you think the aftermath of overcoming this certain fear that you have, which you have never been able to confront, which haunts you all the time? How do you think when you have overcome it, how would you make it feel, right? Now, is your power of imagination intricate enough? Is it strong enough? Because today, whatever that I'm going to explain requires your in-depth imagination. You should picturize every bit of it. Because today we are going to talk about the fear of something extreme. Fear of something is obviously called as phobia. Today we are going to discuss about this author's actual fear and how he conquered it. His fear is about the fear of water, which is called as aquaphobia. And let's get to know how William O. Douglas, our writer over here, overcame that fear. That is the lesson about. Now, he was born in Minnesota and has a BA in English as well as economics. Later on, he worked at very odd jobs, different kinds of jobs just to make money, right? Later, in Yakima, he taught as a teacher for 2 years. But next up, he says, I decided it was impossible to save enough money by teaching, and I said, to hell with it. Ouch, that hurts. Legal career, then when he could not save enough money out of teaching, why did you do that, Douglas? I mean, it is fair enough. He started his legal career under Franklin D. Roosevelt and served as the longest serving justice for 36 years till 1975. That's the longest. And he also wrote, this chapter is taken from Of Men and Mountains, written by William O. Douglas, which talks about his aquaphobia, how he overcame aquaphobia. He has given a lot of details that enables us to picturize the entire lesson beautifully. Let's waste no time and dive into the deep water. Moving forward, what is there in this lesson? What happens in this lesson is that he as a boy, William as a boy, when he was 10 or 12 years old, he decides to learn swimming. Simple, very basic. But his mother actually wants him, are you sure that you're going to do it? But he wanted to take it up in the Young Men's Christian Association. When he was 10 or 12 years old, he wanted to take up swimming lessons from YMCA pool. Okay. But did it start from here? His aquaphobia, did it start from here? No, not really. His mother had warned him, but he had told YMCA pool is one side of it is 2 feet. It starts from 2 feet and the gradual maximum depth is 9 feet. I'll manage, he says. But then when he actually goes to when did aquaphobia actually start? It started when he was 3 or 4 years old. He had gone to paddling with his father to the California beach. Of course, when he was 3 to 4 years old. What happened when he was surfing? He was knocked by the waves and he was swept over by the waves. That is when his aquaphobia actually had begun. Okay. So aversion to water started when he was 3 to 4 years old. He was standing on the surfboard. Then he was knocked by the wave. The overpowering waves had given rise to terror about the water in his heart. That's where it actually started. But it is only the hint of this aquaphobia that was born in him. What actually happens later on is that one day when he was at the YMCA pool, the chilling flashbacks when he was 3 to 4 years old, went surfboarding with his father, those memories were brought back. By what? By this. So he had gathered a lot of confidence. He had skinny legs and he didn't really wanted to show his skinny legs to anyone. But somehow he had gathered courage and gone to the pool, and he tried swimming a couple of times with the help of the wings that are there, the paddling wings that are there. He tried swimming a couple of times. It was okay with him. Only until something really bad happened. Okay, what is that really bad? We'll see. Some mishap happened. What is it? It was a quiet pool. What happens is that there walks in an 18-year-old, good-looking, by the physical appearance, of course. He was a well-built, good-looking guy. He came in and he starts bullying William O. Douglas. Okay, what does he say? Hey, skinny, do you want a dip into the water? Do you want to be ducked? Do you like that? And he tosses him into the pool. So he's tossed into the pool. Now, William has completely lost it. When he landed inside the pool, he landed in a sitting position and he started drowning. He started going inside. What happens later on? He came up with a strategy in his head. What is the strategy? This is very important. Keep it in your head. He decides that, okay, let me just do this thing. It is great that he did it while he was drowning. I mean, me in that position, I would not have been able to do it. When he was drowning, when he was going inside, what happens is that he thinks, okay, now I'm going to hit the bottom. So when I hit the bottom, I will make a big jump and come back from water. Obviously, I will float in the water. I'll try moving around my hands and head and try to reach the, surface of the pool. I'll go back. That is the strategy. When you hit the bottom, make a big jump, you will come to the surface, fall flat, paddle, and go get out of the pool. That is the strategy. But does it really work? What happens? Over here, it felt like as though when he was going down, 9 feet felt like 90 feet. His lungs were, it felt as though it was about to burst. So what he does, his first attempt, he goes down and then tries to make a big jump. When he comes up, only his eyes and nose comes out. His mouth doesn't come out. So he's not able to yell, scream for help. Only that what he sees is yellow color light, a fading yellow light. And then again, he's seen to be going down. So the first attempt is a failure. Now the second attempt, when he makes a second attempt, first time he has gone down, tried to come up, failed attempt, went again. Now when he was going down again, he says, okay, let me make another jump now. This time I can do it. But at this point, his lungs were really aching. His head was dizzy. It was also throbbing. It was about to explode. And he could not feel his legs. It was paralyzed. Later, somehow he's able to make another jump. But this time, his nose doesn't even come out. Forget about the mouth. Nose doesn't come out. He tries to, gasp for air. He takes in more water and goes down the second time as well. Imagine all of this happening. Imagine, God forbid that shouldn't happen. Imagine you being in William's place and imagine all of this, how difficult it is getting. I'm sure your lungs are also aching. Breathe. You're not in his place. Okay. Third time again, when he was going down, he was like, okay, you know what? I think I'm giving up. This going down without trying to fight this irresistible force that I cannot see. Giving up is fine. I'll just go inside and let's see what happens. For him, it felt like the curtain of life is falling and I am going down. I am dying and I'll accept this. But what happened? We'll see what happens. He doesn't die. He is found on the back of his stomach, laying on the back of his stomach, vomiting the water outside. And the boy who bullied him and the boy who pushed him into the swimming pool, people are taking class to him and he's been asked, why did you do it? He was about to die. And he just says, I was just trying to play with him and this became serious. But that day is when Douglas' fear or aquaphobia grew really, really deep and hard. Okay. So he survived. Although he was haunted by fear, he couldn't eat that day. The fear kept haunting him. Fear kept keeping him awake all night. Then his legs felt paralyzed for a long period of time. And he was deprived of the joys of canoeing, boating, catching fishes, because the very sight of water frightened him. It gave him an icy heart, terror in his heart. Okay, so all of these joys he had to avoid. Later on in October, in the month of October, he decided, okay, you know what, let me just confront my fear. And in the month of October, he gets an instructor, he gets a coach. What does he do afterwards? The coach trains him by putting a rope to his belt. So belt would be put on William, then it will be attached to a rope. That rope will be either held by the instructor or it would be attached to the pulley. So eventually, after a couple of months, the instructor would let the rope go loose. He would be swimming and the rope would be tied to him. He would let go of the rope, and whenever he let go of the rope, a little fear was there in Douglas. So although he is practicing to desensitize the fear that is there in him, he has to overcome it somehow. Later on, what happened? There was a rope attached to his belt, of course. Then in the underwater, the instructor taught him another technique where he had to go underwater and try to inhale and exhale. Take air outside, inhale, and then go inside and use that air. He learned that technique as well. And for weeks, he actually was holding on to the edge of the swimming pool and was just kicking his legs in order to gain control of them. Eventually, he could gain control of them. Second step was also a success. Then, in the month of April, he was actually asked to swim in the pool, which he did. But that's not enough. He wanted to know whether the fear, the aquaphobia, would come back when he was alone. He was able to swim without the rope. He was able to kick his legs. When everybody was around, he was able to swim finally in the month of July. But can the fear come back again, strike him again when there is no one around? He wanted to test. Let's see. So for that, he makes the first attempt. He goes by a lake and tries to swim. Nothing happens. He's able to do all the moves, swim around. In the second attempt, he goes to a little deeper lake. But as he reaches to the middle of the lake, which felt like it was bottomless, the fear came back to him. And he smiled and he said, look, Mr. Fear, look, Mr. whatever aquaphobia that you are, I don't really care. I am going to overcome you. And as he said that to himself, he felt better. He was like, okay, maybe the fear went away. So for the third time, for one last time, third time's a charm. So he went and jumped from a little higher place, like a mountain, jumped from there, and he was no longer fearful. The fear had gone away completely. So he shouted with a lot of happiness. He was very happy to overcome such, great fear that he had was indeed like a victory for him. And afterwards, he says, William O. Douglas, who was a legal advisor to Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, he says, as Roosevelt says, he quotes Roosevelt and says, all we have to fear is fear itself. I don't know if it is the idea of death or actually death we fear. Maybe it is the idea of dying that brings fear in us. So what do we have to fear in reality? Fear itself. If we overcome fear, there is nothing that can stop us. That's how it is. And after that day, the willingness to live somehow started growing and growing in him. That's what was there in this lesson of ours. Deep water with a lot of deep messages and deep meanings, right? So it all started when William O. Douglas decided to go take up swimming lessons when he was 10 or 12 years old. But he had a little pinch of fear of water when he had gone paddling with his father when he was 3 to 4 years old, where he was knocked by the water. But after that, what happens? He goes to the YMCA pool. There he is bullied and pushed into the water by an 18-year-old guy. Then after a lot of failed attempts, some 3 times he goes down with the strategy of jumping from the water and coming back up. It doesn't work out. It fails. Later on, while he was just about to give up on life, he was saved by other people who were there in the pool. Later on, he was deprived of the joys that were there, that came out of water, canoeing, boating, fishing, everything. So he decided that I would practice and desensitize this fear of mine, aquaphobia. So he took an instructor, practiced for months, learned a lot of strategies, and then was finally able to overcome this fear of his. And hence this experience had a lot of deeper meaning for him. It also had a lot of in-depth meaning and a lot of lessons for all of us as well. It is true that we humans, as basic as it may sound, we all have our own, ways of fearing things. We may fear cockroaches. We may fear a lot of the things that may feel very basic, right? It is personal to us. But what matters is that when you confront those fears, when you overcome those fears, is when you win. You win for yourself, but nobody else. And then that experience will be completely meaningful to none other than you. So on that note, I'll see you all in the next class. I hope this was a lot of fun for me to teach it to you. I'm sure it was fun for you as well. On that note, I'll see you all in the next class. Until then, keep confronting your fears, overcoming your fears. I'll see you all. Thank you.